If there was a time in gaming history that could have its jerky slobbered on, it would probably be the 2000s. The decade started off with the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube, later stemming to the 360, PS3, and Wii. It was a radical time in the gaming lexicon, and with all the positivity in the air surrounding this moment in history, I'd like to ruin that by looking at Metacritic's worst rated game for each year in the 2000s. And what screams more sauce than a familiar face entering the battleground to start the marathon off? HBO Boxing, releasing November 20th for PlayStation, that got a score of 26. You may remember this ancient treasure from the worst rated PS1 games video a while back, where my initial experience ended faster than your average person getting off to Prego Shino Potter the Rebel Hedgehog. So I wanted to return to home box office boxing with a fresh mind and fresh meat. Out with Tommy, in with the animal. A creature who smears his own feces on his chest for intimidation, eyes that reap souls, hair that's drawn on with a crayon, and attire to send his enemies into a haze. A machine built for destruction, standing at 6'8", 280 pounds, known in the ring as Captain Hook. When starting career mode, you are given 3,000 points to allocate into various stats for your creature, which I of course did, layering them across the board, preparing for my feast against Pete De Beers. You can also spend those aforementioned points on various training methods before whoever you're going to battle in hopes of being in the best shape possible, but of course my training was immediately worrying. Captain Hook was getting gassed out after 5 whole steps, then come to find out shortly after, that worry was completely justified. Apparently, even when cranking the animal's stats to the maximum, the guy is still a can of fucking Campbell's, getting his shit rocked in about 50 seconds. Initially, I thought I got a bad draw, accidentally starting a rumble against a mythological being reincarnated to box. Nope, every stoic figure you battle is built like Pac-Man, eating your shit, tanking each hit until he's ready to send you to hell. The animal must have brought his punches from the family pool party with the noodle-powered ass arms he has or something. It genuinely feels as if that's the case. My punches audibly and visually have almost no effect or satisfaction to them, which is kind of important, I think, when you're talking about a game that is all about punching people. Surely, players want to feel the impact during combat. It adds to the satisfaction of wailing on a poor soul as you ascend the food chain of the boxing world. Regardless, none of this stopped me from hammering away at opposing Neanderthals, or attempting to, rather. It took me a few fights to finally get the animal's hand raised. Gabriel Martinez seriously struggled with my back on the ropes bitch play, a maneuver that became the animal's trademark technique. The general movement is so stiff in HBO Boxing, trying to float around the ring like you're reliving the Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland final stage, hovering in to strike with the power of 1,000 moose, is basically impossible. So playing like a jackass was the best idea for me. Once this mentality began, the animal's win rate started becoming closer to 50%, although even when my sentient piece of foreskin's win rate did start increasing, it doesn't necessarily mean the enjoyment factor was increased to never before seen levels. Movement fluidity and impact satisfaction are two of the biggest things about a boxing title, and this game doesn't have either. I literally feel as if I'm trudging through the mud, whacking a bag of potatoes till he or I falls on the floor. The only real enjoyment I feel one could have while playing this would be setting up AI versus AI matches for your favorite fighters, like the animal versus the Grill Master. A gladiatorial battle I couldn't be more excited to view, where that said excitement obviously only lasted a total of 5 seconds, since George Foreman inevitably transmogged into Steve Fox, executing perfect machine gun punches to the animal's gut, officially sending him to the Shadow Realm. With all this said, I do wish I could fully determine whether this is truly the worst game of the year 2000. Maybe someone else can. There always seems to be a Merlin of society with their magic powers and extraterrestrial abilities, knowing anything and everything when you talk about a video game on the internet. So please tell me, Gandalf, fucking Merlin, is there a worse game than home box box office rigor mortis boxing that released in Y2K? Just kidding, you don't need to answer that, because I can be a wizard myself. Mortal Kombat Special Forces released the same year, yet it somehow has a higher score, proving that life isn't fair. It's truly a terrible situation. All I can say is I'd rather play HBO Boxing than Mortal Kombat Special Forces, and 2001's worst rated game, which is Survivor for PC that got a score of 26. A video game, or excuse me, interactive game about the TV show. I've never watched the show before, and luckily for me, I was given 4 to 5 minutes of raw action from it, with real life footage helping me understand my tribalistic roots. Once this was done and over with, I was able to pick a gang that probably has no effect on the game. I chose a random one to finally select my character. All these are most likely ones from the show. I don't care about that whatsoever. I wanted to create a new iteration of Squanto. I felt like it would be a great move to make in hopes of competing with my fellow tribesmen that all move at unreasonable speeds. Their character model seems to be moving normally, but looking at the background, it appears they're cutting through space and time with each and every step. It must be the way of the woods, I guess, leaving the onlooker in a stun lock as if they were rocked by Prime Mike Tyson with brass knuckles, because the lifelong brain rattling doesn't end there. Before each level starts, you are required to pick a task for your chosen character to perform, like gathering food or water. Then, when the level starts, you find out you don't need to do anything. Your character is just doing it on their own. The actual gameplay, if you want to call it that, is you clicking on other characters to talk with them. That may or may not have an effect on the game. I don't know. It's a bunch of pre-written dialogue you're selecting from that I believe is expecting you to silver-tongued devil your way into turning members of the island against each other. I don't get the point of this. None of my motor mouth abilities did anything tangible to my woodland living. From my testing, you can let Squanto run around doing his shit for the 3 to 4 minutes you're given, while you as the player sit there viewing the sights of sewage muck that is trying its darndest to have a flow animation to it, or look closely at a grade school student's watercolor painting project, inhaling all of the smog of early 2000s graphics. Doing absolutely nothing, and no gameplay changes will occur. When these time wasters, we'll call them, are done and over with, that's when you're able to interact with the game you paid money for by playing a little minigame. The first is a slider puzzle that has wonderful prehistoric animations as your character moves oversized squares to complete that said puzzle, and upon completing this exhilarating party game that lasts all of 30 seconds, you are tossed right back into the resident snoozer text adventure overworld. Not saying it's impossible for a text adventure game to be gripping, of course. OnlyFans subscribers play them nightly with a person who they think cares about them, and they pay monthly for that, so clearly these things are an immaculate time if done well. Survivor is obviously not. No conversations you have really tickle your pickle in any meaningful way, alluding to a bigger event transpiring. This is just not up to snuff when it comes to word gaming. Your only quote-unquote excitement comes from the minigames in between those segments that only last around a minute each. The second I got to play was a log-pulling escapade that Squanto got absolutely pummeled in. Everyone else fake nattied their way to the finish line, while Squanto couldn't walk 4 steps without getting completely deflated. However, he did redeem himself in the hood resident's worst nightmare minigame of practicing his aim for a drive-by shooting. Survivor the interactive game is one of those titles that is beyond questionable to purchase. The gameplay is primarily waiting for levels to end, doing nothing. Am I really expected to sit here waiting for a season to end for any of my speech to mean anything, or what? Instead of playing this, you could go outside, helicoptering a stick around over your head, trying to lift yourself off of the Earth's surface, and that would be a better use of your time. Unless you truly enjoy gazing into a monitor, drooling on yourself that much. For me, I'm in full agreement with the reviewers here, especially Computer Gaming World, who tossed a verbal heater at this thing.
Even a screensaver richer than #146 S flatty ass crack is preferable to this.
I myself have repeated this quote many times, especially when I saw 2002's worst rated game, Gravity Games Bike Street Vert Dirt, that got a score of 24. A video game about the bicycle, an activity that I'm not really the biggest fan of, nor do I care for sports games in general. I know a lot of people are though, mainly with their $60, now $70 yearly roster updates that let the consumer dribble an orange testicle on a screen. So going into this, I was scouring for things that would make me upchuck back into my mouth. Similar to when I played Skateboarding Madness, this is a game where even if you're a person who takes skateboards, sucking on them the long way, loving the world and actually doing it yourself, or if you are one who is the equivalent to Angry Man 1 from Skateboard Kid, wanting to punch them all in half, both parties can play Skateboarding Madness, understanding this game is horrendous. And upon picking my character in Vert Dirt that looks as if he'd hold up a convenience store for a pack of gum, I can safely say it's not at the level of gunk that Skateboarding Madness is, but it's not too far off. The biggest frustration I was having was pulling off tricks. It seems regardless of whether you take your time to methodically press buttons, or if you're pressing every face button in rapid succession at levels of having a seizure on the controller, going nuts all over it, the probability of execution is the same. The tricks only work when they feel like it. Thankfully, for the sake of unlocking levels though, you aren't required to be a descendant of an ethereal skateboarding figure racking fat stacks. You can do other objectives completely ignoring the point ones, kinda defeating the reason of playing a game like this. Typically, you'd want to be peeling around, slicing through air with no risk of becoming physically disabled upon hitting the pavement, trying to create a visual opiate for yourself, but this game makes it a whole new level of challenge just to do that. After a short time passed, I stopped caring about anything and simply marveled at my character getting stuck inside of walls or railings after messing up a jump. As much as I'd love to shout from the mountaintops, verbally spewing the levels of grime oozing out of Vert Dirt, it's a straightforward deal. A game was created, and the most important thing about it is borderline dysfunctional. There's nothing more to it. Unless their goal was to transcend what bikers everywhere know, building an esoteric gameplay loop not accessible to your average cretin who purchased this thing at a store, the real reasoning will forever remain untread waters. No one can factually speak on this if they weren't on the dev team, a sentiment that could be shared with most of the games of this caliber. The public doesn't know what happened behind the scenes, it's only speculation, asking questions like, was the development team being whipped by the publishers on a nightly basis? It's possible. Why else could situations like this one occur? Or others, such as Drake of the 99 Dragons, the worst rated game of the year 2003, getting a score of 22. Easily one of the most infamous games in history. It's been ripped apart by God knows how many people. I've already had the pleasure of giving it a go during the worst rated Xbox games video previously, adding more of a reason to not monologue about it for too terribly long. However, this time, instead of focusing on the original Xbox version, I wanted to toss in a bone seeing how the PC version is, mainly to test the difference of controls, because that's arguably the worst part of Drake of the 99 Dragons. With each passing level during a session, you feel like members of the Tunnel Snakes beat your ass into the ground, cracking every bone in your legs, then having you roleplay as Sonic the Hedgehog speeding down a freeway afterwards. The controls impair you to levels seen by not many other games. When a game is expecting you to run around, jump off walls, gun people down, when they can hardly control themselves, it creates plenty of world record any percent attempts of playing in traffic. This is a situation that sadly cannot be expressed through footage or verbiage. If you've ever gotten a lick of Drake, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I thought trying to play it on PC would be a way to rectify that issue, at least somewhat. And after I got my pockets ran by the first two enemies a handful of times, my overall experience was shockingly not as fucking disgusting as the Xbox version was. Moving, jumping, and shooting is nowhere near as challenging as using a controller with a default format, especially when considering at the time you'd be playing this on the Duke, an absolute menace to controllers everywhere. So this simple fact makes the gameplay much easier comparatively. The other massive nugget I noticed as I went on my journey was how the overall difficulty when it comes to enemies appeared to be drastically reduced. They seem to go out of their way, missing all their bullets when you're in a scuffle. Now, I'm not sure if I ripped the fattest lottery ticket of all time or what, but it was a blessing for two reasons. One, I didn't die as much, meaning it's less time I need to play Drake of the 99 Dragons. And two, I didn't need to sit here waiting through these obnoxious ass mocking sections from the powers above each and every time I died. Society has always wondered what the reasoning for making this play was. It's presumably to make the player laugh, but when it happens repeatedly, the joke wears off unbelievably quickly, just becoming annoying to the point you want to shut the game off. Needless to say, I'm glad I didn't get punished by it too much. The reduced difficulty, or what I presume is reduced difficulty unless I fell for the biggest swindle in human history, removes almost every frustration you typically have, sort of changing how this game is viewed overall. I genuinely didn't hate my time with it. I'm of course not saying Drake of the 99 Dragons on PC is an underrated subaquatic tome found in the Mariana Trench or anything. I'd still choose to be dead than fully play through, since unsurprisingly, even when disregarding the difficulty, there are still parts of the game that leave me stunted, like the first boss fight. There's nothing telling you how to kill him. You can shoot this goofball until your timer runs out, and this strangely built humanoid will never die. You are expected to know the only way to hurt him is when you slow down time. Apparently the manual tells you this. Without that, how the fuck are you supposed to figure that out on your own? He doesn't have a health bar, there's no hint or verbal clue from our googly-eyed, crimson-chinned freakazoid character we're playing as. You just have to take a shot in the dark, hoping your guess is the correct play. Outside of situations like that, PC Drake is essentially you walking through levels spamming mouse 1 and mouse 2, with the two biggest annoyances dunked into a garbage disposal, those being controls and difficulty. Your whole playthrough becomes weirdly apathetic rather than rage-inducing. It drones on and on as you wait for it to be over. Now, I know there are some out there who weirdly enjoy Drake of the 99 Dragons, mainly for the aesthetic, which is admittedly solid, but at that point, you might as well get the comic book if you're interested in viewing artistic glory. To my understanding, there's only one issue, because the video game killed any and all chances Drake had in becoming an actual series adults everywhere would create Rule 34 of. Alas, if for whatever reason you do want to play Drake of the 99 Dragons in a way that is not embodying the essence of 6-week-old milk, the PC port is the way to go. If you want to have an experience similar to sticking your head in a meat grinder, the Xbox version is the move. To be real though, playing the Xbox version is an actual stupid decision. It's on par with the idea behind 2004's worst rated game, Ping Pals for the Nintendo DS, releasing on December 8th, getting a score of 28. Yet another friendly face, and arguably the most pointless game of all time. As I'm sure you're aware, the DS had PictoChat built in, allowing you to open up a chat room, draw a few pictures of genitalia, chat random gobbledygook, sending it to local townsfolk who joined in. So why would any sensible human purchase a cartridge that's practically the same thing? Except here you can talk with fake people having the most vanilla conversations imaginable. When they inevitably get tired of you, they disconnect, leaving you in the dust, forcing you to get out of the chat room to try again, or play one of the mini-games. Like a guessing game where you toss out random pie flavors, Italian foods, or even live through the exact moment that got the thinker stuck in his renowned position. The bucket of tricks, guessing a number between 1 and 10. I cannot stress how pointless Ping Pals is. This has to be some form of a scam. Why are you selling a game that's basically a program built into the console the person already paid for? It's one of the many moments society will never be able to understand, similar to me not being able to understand the thoughts going on in my own head when I stumbled into Crime Life Gang Wars as 2005's worst rated title that got a score of 30. There's something truly great about seeing how the multiverse of low-rated or terrible games is so tightly knit. While treading different topics, browsing the lands, you'll unintentionally revisit games you've already played multiple times. But in this case specifically, the situation is a bit more interesting. Crime Life is one of those titles where the critics gave it a lot of low ratings, while the user score was much higher. Obviously, the sample size on Metacritic is smaller when it comes to users. Apparently, there is a unit of people who do think this game is great, for some reason, making my goal to go in with a clear mind, attempting to find out why. Again, if you don't happen to know what this game is, Crime Life was Konami's take on the ever-loved gang and street life fetish that a lot of people seem to have. I myself have never been able to uncover the reasoning for the intrigue of it. Why living on food stamps, existing in a neighborhood where you'll get blasted if you walk out after sundown, having a perpetual target on your back, sleeping with women that have syphilis or men that have scabies is a life anyone would want to live or pretend to live is beyond me. Maybe it's just the killing. At their core, humans must want to annihilate society for seemingly no reason. Nonetheless, Crime Life did try its hardest to appease those gang fiends in a more grounded way, mainly because the ruffian you control is primarily pulling off his grimy, stank-ass hood rat plays utilizing hand-to-hand combat, which is a massive turn of events compared to a lot of other gang-related titles out there. You're usually blowing everyone to smithereens, existing as the epitome of dominance with firearms. But throughout the entirety of my playtime, I only found 1 or 2 guns, both being pistols, and there appears to be no gun shop either, so your mind needs to fully adapt to taking the job of a lunch lady delivering knuckle sandwiches. You aren't allowed to drive cars to run people over either, meaning basically all your gameplay revolves around you going from mission to mission, pummeling a bunch of peon worms or scrapping against a boss. Like, when I was in this fighting ring, I had to tussle against a hooligan named Code E that was just fucking gross. This great value wet wipe was constantly delivering the business with prime shipping, doing buckets of damage, running my shit repeatedly, to the point he might as well be a walking, talking, grounded Boeing B-17. It took a little bit before I found out how to exploit his combo attack, which was by simply walking backwards, forcing him to shadow box for 2 of his punches. Then I retaliate with my ancient kung fu, allowing me to introduce this mouth breather to the Geodudes below, attaining my victory. And speaking of that ancient kung fu, the main character, whose name is Trey, does these ridiculous finishing moves whenever opponents are on low health. I'm not sure if Trey was the generational student that came out of the Songshan Shaolin Temple or what's going on here, but it's a blessing to see that Jake Conway's soul existed in previous titles before Ride to Hell Retribution hit the store shelves. That's not a joke either. This animal, not to be confused with the animal, has the ability to take on entire groups of rival gang members, folding them in half, or pulling off whatever secret power move Trey has in his pocket, creating these all-out war zones in the street. Seeming to be a positive thing about Crime Life to some, you can have a massive war if you truly wanted to, paving the sidewalks of insert city name with people's blood. But this right here is the entire game in a nutshell, just running around punching people. I wish I could concoct more to say about it, honestly. Unfortunately, I can't. There isn't a diverse sandbox to explore, no interesting gameplay mechanics, there's hardly any variety with combat, you can't interact with the environment in any meaningful way. From a gameplay perspective, you quite literally feel as if you're playing a worse GTA. Anything you wish you could be doing, GTA allowed that in '97. During my playtime, I was wondering how many missions I'm expected to play before before something new is teabagged into my face. I was going on and on and on, just punching and punching and punching. It's so mind-numbing and gets incredibly old very quickly. I've been told previously the story to Crime Life is the reason why it's worth playing, which may be true, but realistically, who's going to sit there playing a game when a majority of the time spent on it is straight up honk shoe? With that said, even with the negatives laid out, I'm not sure if I fully agree with this being rated as low as it is. Crime Life is not a rickety, vomit-inducing, depressing, pathetic-ass maggot in the gaming space. If it was, there wouldn't be people who somehow find enjoyment from it. The game is just mediocre at best, really. A statement that cannot be said about the worst-rated game from 2006, Terra Wars New York Invasion, that got a score of 24. The game begins with you soaring in on the chopper, sitting on a minigun turret, blasting away at aliens. Big Papa Alien comes up shortly into this life-changing moment. Chopper goes down, allowing you to enter the universe of, I think, Earth's End. Aliens are here. Kill them all. Halo. These motherfuckers look like elites holding plasma rifles. Were they serious with this? It's great to take inspiration from another piece of work, but come on, guys. You better get used to seeing them, by the way. The enemy variety in Terra Wars is actual gutter sludge. After a handful of hours, I only ran into 3 different enemy types, which is unsurprisingly the least of this game's issues. Being a first-person shooter, you'd expect solid gunplay, with the movement being lumped into that camp as well. That's wishful thinking, I guess. When moving around, the game decides to plaster you onto a cooking dish, sprinkle on some lorries, sending your character straight into the oven at 400 degrees. When taking damage from enemies, shortly after jumping, or even when just walking, you periodically stop for seemingly no reason, like you have a limp. I don't get why this choice was made. It's possible this is a bug, and if it is a bug, that's arguably worse than it being intentional, since you aren't able to account for the lack of movement whenever it decides to transpire. You die pretty quickly in this game too, with health packs being incredibly stingy as well. So if you're getting your pockets ran, and your character starts doing the Dr. House strut down a pathway while you're trying to get to cover, it can make your playthrough much harder than it needs to be. Although, you can save whenever you want to, and you need to remember to save your game. When I played, I was under the impression I was getting checkpoints or some adjacent feature on the back end periodically. It's kind of expected in a game that released in 2006, really. So I was going along. I ended up getting smoked after playing for around an hour, and I had to restart the entire game because these 8-brained buffoons didn't put checkpoints or even levels into the game. It's one continuous path. If you die without manually saving, you need to restart the whole thing. What would happen if a player ran into a death barrier? That happened to me, luckily after I started save scumming. While I was in this tunnel, I stupidly decided to walk a bit too far ahead of my teammate, so the game killed me for it. I'd lose my shit if I had to restart the game because of this. In 2006, what's the excuse for the no auto-saving play? It's not like we're experiencing a once-in-a-lifetime, riveting shooter that has people bending over backwards, power-bombing others out of their way, shattering skulls inside of Walmarts to get their hands on it. You're just playing bland, aliens invade the Earth type shit, cruising through, shooting a few enemies, entering a hallway, shooting the same enemies, to then enter another hallway or big room, battle the same enemies again, finally getting a change of pace by talking to an NPC that, of course, have stupendous voice acting.
Thank you for the help, Captain. We couldn't have survived without your help.
Are honored to assist, soldier. We found a soldier from your platoon by the escalator. Please send someone to help him.
We'll send a medic over to help him. Is there anything we can do to help you, sir?
The most strange bit about this game to me, though, is how there's no music at all for the entirety of your playthrough. So you better crank that music you have on deck for your Biggest Loser DS workout sessions until you're able to witness a cutscene from the heavens themselves. Like when I had my teammate tell me to cover him as he sauntered as slowly as possible over to an area off screen, not a single sound happened for about 20 seconds to where I thought the game crashed. Then I heard him say,
"Fire in the hole!"
allowing me to continue playing. This is the one cutscene that's worth mentioning out of the few I was shown, because what's going on around me is pretty bare bones and lackluster overall. I feel like I'm playing a game out of a cereal box, but the funny part is, I quite literally could play a shooter game that came in a cereal box, and it's better. When the one positive aspect you can scrape together from the Goop Lagoon is that you're able to upgrade weapons by picking up the fabled biomatter item from killing enemies, speaks more volumes than I ever could. God forbid we tried designing intricate levels that aren't just walking from point A to point B, maybe build an enemy that would make players say, "What planet am I on?" Such as a Toyota Yaris that has a tentacle coming out of the hood. As seen in Yaris for the Xbox 360, the worst rated game of 2007 that has a score of 17, making it one of the lowest rated games on the entire site. This is a game players are not able to download on consoles anymore. Yaris was an Xbox Live Arcade title that got taken down eons ago. The only way you can play it now is by downloading Yaris online, playing through emulation, or transferring it over to your console. I guess making the question become, would you want to go through all that? I mean, if you're into games that are weird, then probably, yeah. What you do is simple and straightforward. You choose between 3 different Toyota models, tearing it up through tube-ass tracks, shooting at little random robot enemies, overweight Frankenstein monsters on motorcycles, and toasters with legs, while avoiding hazards collecting Toyota coins. Yaris seriously comes off as if it's an early day shitpost game you'd find on Miniclip. I cannot for the life of me understand this, but a brand deal was sealed, a person created this, and released it. Not for money though. Yaris was one of the few free-to-play titles you were able to download back then, making me question why it's rated so low. I get what you're looking at is not great. It has the visual quality of Flu Patient versus Glass Pane during a how long can it be see-through challenge. I just figured the fact it was free would have made the reviews less harsh. In 2007, free games were not the norm on consoles. The only ones you had on 360 were like Doritos Crash Course, Happy Wars, and a few others. Of course, those said games were actually solid, entertaining times, while Yaris odorized your room with neckbeard nest stench in comparison, but you weren't losing anything from downloading it. I don't know, the all-seeing eyes of the gaming space must not see things in that manner. With that said, I'm not gonna argue with him. No way in hell is Yaris going to have anyone clapping their hands and stomping their feet in enjoyment, compared to most games at least. No matter how mundane and boring Yaris becomes in a short time frame, it's still more of a hog throb than Spogs Racing for Wii, the worst rated game of 2008, getting a score of 18. This finally being the moment I realized I ran into yet another game I've already talked about, but was too far into writing and accruing footage to scrap it all and start over. Then I remembered YouTube is the same platform where people sit there stealing content, adding absolutely nothing over it, selling YouTube channel growth and fitness courses in attempts to grift unsuspecting individuals out of money, teaching them stuff they can easily learn for free, selling fraudulent products, upload clips of people visiting the underworld, profit off of other people's demise, spread false information, being a demagogue for entire communities, rage baiting them on a consistent basis in order to make money, promoting crypto scams to rug pull people, using it as a platform to interact with younglings, exploiting serious issues for money and clout, begging for money, manipulating people who subscribe to their channel to give them money, rely on AI-generated content and silly AI voices because the person behind the channel has less of a personality than dried semen stuck on a homeless shelter's wall, amongst plenty of other wonderful activities the internet helps promote, since these platforms give no care in the world about what's uploaded to them. So I think I can live with myself swallowing a video game where you play as a plastic circle hidden within an oversized tire for a second time, wheeling through bland, lifeless tracks, listening to an obnoxious engine sound in hopes of keeping you invested with what's going on. A task that is literally impossible unless you take unhealthy amounts of Adderall. If you happen to live under a rock, not knowing what transpires in the illustrious Spogs Racing video game, you have 2 separate modes to play. One is regular racing, and the other is called Crash and Grab Trademark, a mode allowing you to use weapons. Of course, it doesn't matter which path you decide to tread, cause both are monotonous beyond anyone's comprehension. You can melt pavement on either one, never reaching the circle of Kumbaya, lighting up a stogie, ascending to a new metaphysical realm of amusement. Instead, you're sitting there questioning how and why you are stuck in endless turmoil during a Spogs session. The reasoning for this game to be put into our world is unknown, nor does anyone understand why these people were attempting to emulate Pogs, a toy from the 90s in 2008, but they did, creating a game that would knock anyone out cold after playing for a hearty 10 minutes. So for your sake and mine, I don't believe there's much of a point in continuing to monologue about Spogs. From a simple visual alone, it's quite simple to comprehend what quality of game is being presented here, which is just the way it goes sometimes. One game will have a lot of questions to be asked, then others will be a Spogs that's blatant and straightforward with not a lot to say about it. Pictures or actions speak much louder than words, a phrase to live by, bringing us to 2009's worst rated game. If you recall the egg I laid from my hoo-ha earlier, the one speaking on spending $70 to dribble an orange testicle around, that egg has finally hatched, giving us NBA Unrivaled that got a score of 25. This was an Xbox 360 and PSN downloadable game you were able to acquire for a handful of shekels that had me question why it was rated this low. What we have here is an arcadey basketball title that has a laughable amount of content for a game you need to spend money on. Your only real difference of visuals is the color of the court and players, depending on the team you pick, as you repeatedly sit there viewing janky animations, doing your best to win. The only serious negative that stuck out to me from the gameplay is that the players themselves don't have unique statistics from one another, a very bizarre choice to make. This lessens brain power exerted while playing matches. Who has the ball doesn't matter, making the game get more boring than it otherwise would have gotten. Shortly into my quest, I slowly started spiraling down into the slums, only going for threes in hopes of entertaining myself, a move that, of course, did not work. Now, I'm not able to say if a person who loves basketball would find this enjoyable. I am a foreigner. I use 2K discs as premium quality coasters, and the NBA itself is high-end melatonin to the point I could fall asleep on a bed of nails while watching it, but surely there would have been better options out there for a basketball title. NBA Jam was on both the 360 and the PS3, which is clearly the game Unrivaled wanted to emulate, so you might as well eat the better product when its cooch is sitting right on your mouth, I guess. Calling Unrivaled the worst game of 2009, though, that's a bit hairy. There had to have been games that were more broken, dysfunctional, and rotten. This one is just mundane, not giving much content or replay value, unless you love watching NBA players slamming a ball into a hoop in an over-exaggerated fashion. Thankfully, when it comes to the other years in the 2000s, those were mostly solid for their respective worst-rated title. I think the only replaceable games from the ones we looked at are maybe HBO Boxing, mainly because it released the same year as Special Forces, NBA Unrivaled, and Crime Life. The others all have genuine reasoning for being in the position they're in. However, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think any of these should be changed out? Please let me know down in the comments. Big ups to all of our channel members who go above and beyond every month, supporting the channel even further. If you would like to join them, be sure to hit the join button right next to the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, take very good care of yourselves, and I hope to see you all again in the next video.